Welcome back to She's Constructed It, where we start insulating our building. So for insulation, let's take a look at a couple important key points. The biggest and most important being what zone are we in and what climate do we have and what codes do we have for our insulation. Once we've figured that out, let's look at a basic building from bottom up. In our foundation, if we live somewhere where it freezes, we probably have a frost line, and hopefully we have a way we've protected our foundation from that frost line to prevent our building from heaving. In this case, it's often foam that's put in on the sides of the foundation. And then we need to insulate our floor and our walls. The insulation value is called the R value. On our walls, one of the things we'll be talking about is thermal bridging. This is where the cold hits the outside of the wood, and because the wood itself might not be insulated, it carries the cold through our wall. So you'll hear that term come up when we talk about exterior insulation. Another main place we want to look at insulation and how our building is functioning is windows. The most important being orientation, which way are they facing, next being size, and the next being, do we want an openable window or a fixed window? Because an openable window is much more likely to leak than a fixed. Then we go on the concept that heat rises. So really looking at our attic and our ceiling, where the heat goes. All right. I'm very briefly going to take my mask off so I can talk loud enough for this. So we're at the point of installing insulation in our building, which means we have run all of our wires. We have double checked to make sure we have gone through with someone else, described every wire circumstance that has been run. We have stapled any wires that need to be stapled. We're about to bury most things in the wall. So remembering we did insulation on floor and the ceiling, this is the same principle. Insulation has these flaps to staple to. This is fiberglass insulation. I want the paper facing inside unless there's some specific reason I would have it facing out. I have cut my batt to length. What that means is I'm trying not to have a gap at the top or the bottom. We framed our building as much as possible for either 16-inch insulation, which means our studs were 16 on center, which they make insulation to fit these bays, or we did 24s. Some of them are off width. We will cut little strips for those. That's just how building works. When we go to put this in, you can see we have a wire run in here. So if we crush this, there's going to be this great big void right back here that is completely uninsulated. So what we want to do is check the fit of our batt first, make sure we're okay with it. This one looks good, maybe just a smidge short, maybe not. We'll see when it goes in. We can always fill that with a little bit later. But then we're going to go and we're going to find where our wire comes in, which is right around here. You see we've drilled down our wires to come out in the middle of every bay. That keeps us from, when we put drywall screws in, that keeps us from screwing so far we can hit our wires. Same thing on the outside when we're putting things through the sheeting. Ideally, we're in the middle. That also means we want to slit our insulation to the middle so that half of it can go behind and half of it can go in front. So I hold it up, I take my knife, I'm going to very carefully slit my insulation. Go. I need a sharper blade for this. I don't use this blade for too many things. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull my insulation up and behind this wire, and then it'll fold up and around. I'll pull it off. And now I have insulation behind that wire and in front of it. We will have a similar problem when we go to do boxes. We will need to cut out a piece of insulation about the size of a box in this front, but we will leave insulation behind to the best of our ability so we don't just have a cold air gap back here. Then once this is in and I like how it fits, I kind of fluff it around a little bit. Then I'm going to pull my tabs over so that they're ready to staple. Okay, very nice. Remember, you only have to staple one side because the next one that comes over will overlap this, and when you staple it, it will staple both. Then I'm going to take my stapler. staple my insulation, then I'm going to go cut my next bat, I'll slit it, then I'll staple both of these together. Remember, this is the miserable part of the job that you would want to hire out because it just sucks. Which means when you're insulating, you definitely need a mask. This stuff is horrible to breathe. I have on a rain jacket. I find it incredibly uncomfortable. I have on a long sleeve shirt that tucks under my gloves so I get less insulation in my wrists. I have on these semi-impermeable pants with a layer underneath them, and I'm sweltering. And it's hot as all get out, and it's miserable. So when you set up to do your insulation, try and do as much of it as you can in one run, and make sure you're geared up, you're ready to go, you've double-checked everything, and go for as much as you can in one run. Okay, insulation.
Let's look at some of the different types of insulation. There's foam insulation. This generally comes in sheets, usually 4x8 sheets. And there's 3 main types. You want to research which type is right for your application if you're considering using foam. Some things to consider also about foam is it has a very large environmental cost in its production. So you may want to look at other options based on your ethics and also your flammability. The foam can burn and can be dangerous in high fire areas. So we didn't put any foam on the exterior of our building, though it would have been a great exterior insulation because we're in a high fire danger area. In our ceiling, we used a combo of a foam channel and fiberglass insulation. Fiberglass insulation is the most common in our area. Some things you want to know about fiberglass insulation is 1, it's itchy as all get out, so don't handle it without gearing up. 2, it comes in different thicknesses depending on the depth of your walls or ceiling. So really trying to plan what type of insulation you're going to use before you build will help you determine what you might need in your ceiling and in your walls. And then also what additives are in it. Some insulation definitely is a little bit less toxic than others. So do your research on your type of insulation and what's available for you. Another type of insulation I don't have pictures of is blow-in insulation. This is really common in attics. You have to rent a blower and then you get either fiberglass or some sort of paper or recycled material that has been treated with a flame retardant. Do your research on what you're comfortable with. But blow-in insulation is a great option when you have big spaces. This is places where also if you do something really innovative and creative like building double stud walls, an inside and an outside wall, you can fill the cavity in between those two with spray-in insulation or blow-in insulation, and that can really increase your R value and prevent thermal bridging. Let's not forget spray foam. Spray foam is incredibly efficient for its thickness. And so you can use spray foam in small areas and get a lot of R value and a lot of vapor barrier out of that. So let's go into vapor barrier here. In order to understand vapor barriers, we have to look at some concepts of how air holds water. So warm air is less dense than cold air, but cold air can't hold as much water as warm air. There's more suspended water in warm air, and it drops out when the air turns cold. So what this means when we're looking at, say, a window is on the inside of the window, we've got our nice warm building. And then on the outside of our window, we've got the super cold, wintry landscape. When our warm air comes into contact with that cold window, it chills down and then has to lose its water vapor and drop it off on the window. So that's why you get fogged windows when it's cold outside. The more insulated your window, the less window fog you will get. What this looks like in our walls, if we're in northern climates, we may want to consider putting a vapor barrier on our wall so that our warm air doesn't migrate into our wall, move through our insulation, come in contact with that cold sheathing, and drop all the moisture out there. One warning on this, say you have a wall that you built, say with a zip wall, and so it's taped and it's sealed and it's a vapor barrier or an air barrier. And then you put a vapor barrier again on the inside, but you put in your electrical box and you leave big holes in the back. All of a sudden, our air can migrate through those holes in our electrical boxes, go into the insulation, and get trapped in that wall. They'll drop out all their moisture, but there won't be enough air movement to ever potentially dry that wall out. So learning about Vapor barriers and how they apply to your particular climate is really important, and go consult experts on this because this may be something you want, and it definitely is something you should learn the details on before you install.